Amrita. Amrita. I guess everyone is here. Yes?
I mean, it's somewhere inside. Why waste time? I mean, it would have been better for them. It's more focused. It has pictures and visuals. So in a way, it becomes good for students. But it's fine.
Okay, shall we begin? Yeah. So, welcome back, everyone. Before we begin this session, I would like to introduce our guest speaker for this session, Professor Dr. Leena Pujari. Professor Leena Pujari is a faculty member at KC College. She teaches and mentors students with a strong emphasis on critical thinking and socially engaged learning. With a deep interest in questions of gender, media, and culture, she brings to the classroom an approach that blends academic rigor with lived realities. Over the years, she has worked closely with young people, encouraging dialogue around identity, representation, and the social structures that shape everyday life. Her sessions are known for being interactive and reflective, creating spaces where students feel heard and challenged in equal measure. Committed to bridging theory and practice, she has been involved in academic initiatives, workshops, and collaborative programs that foreground equity and inclusion. Whether in the classroom or beyond it, her work is anchored in the belief that education must not only inform, but also empower. We welcome you, ma'am. I now request Dr. Twinkle Sangvi ma'am to felicitate Leena ma'am. Please give a round of applause. We will now begin with session 3 of this workshop, which will be delivered by Leena ma'am on gender isn't a women's issue, why equality needs everyone. Reframing gender equality as a shared social responsibility, encouraging reflection, empathy, and allyship among young people, and building inclusive perspectives for future media professionals. I hand it over to you, ma'am.
Let me just, yeah. So I'll thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I got to hear a certain version of mine that I was, that I don't think was part of what I sent across, but it was lovely to hear about it, and the fact that my sessions are interactive and all of that. And also just to add a little bit to that, I of course teach at KC. But I'm a part of HSNC University, and you know, of course, have taken on many roles there as well. And thank you so much for the generous introduction. And I really, really look forward to interacting with you, because whenever you know, when Yogesh called me and asked me if I could do this. Well, I was in the midst of a very, very extremely busy schedule, which involved a research assignment and travel abroad for that assignment. But when it comes to interacting with students on gender, I try and see that I do not say no, because that is something that I love. I think classrooms and spaces like these are where we belong. And it makes us who we are, what we are, and therefore I never ever leave an opportunity to interact with students. With my own students, I've been doing it for many years, but when it is outside your own sort of realm, it makes it more exciting and interesting. And then I started thinking about, I saw the title and I said, okay, what does one talk about gender? Because and about gender equality. And of course, I'm going to complicate that a little bit and say perhaps why I don't want to talk about gender equality, why I do not believe in gender equality in another sense. But what I also thought is, what does one talk about gender to the Gen Z? right? It made a lot of sense to talk to students about gender some 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But the way things are changing now, I mean, we live in very different times. This is the age of social media. And I think there is nothing that is not available on social media. Age of AI, you ask anything to ChatGPT. ChatGPT will tell you hundreds of things about everything literally under the sun. And I kept wondering, how is it that one can make it a little different? And then I thought to myself, I think the need to talk about gender is more today than it ever was. Simply because of the kind of misconceived ideas, notions, a kind of appropriations that are fundamentally present when it comes to gender. And anything associated with it. So I'm not even using the word feminism at the moment, maybe a little later, because it can trigger off different kind of reactions, half of which may be totally exaggerated or simply something that emanates out of a lack of proper understanding. So I think with that end in view, I prepared a little PPT for you because it had a little bit of visuals. In my talk today, I'm going to draw extensively from the writings of bell hooks. I don't know how many of you have heard about bell hooks. How many of you know about bell hooks? Raise your hands. Literature students. So, and I'm going to make it quite anecdotal. I will draw from my experiences within the classroom. I mean, I always say that I believe in a dialogue, so we are going to talk a lot to one another. I'm not going to just talk and you will listen. I also want to hear from you, and I learn a lot from students. Over the years, I have learned so much from my own students, from the neighborhood, from the nukkad, from the gully, something that even books could not teach me, something that even readings could not teach me. So experiential learning becomes extremely important when we talk about, especially when within the landscape of gender. So I had actually prepared a little PPT for you, and I couldn't find it because I was just loading it. Give me 2 minutes, maybe I'll just dig into my bag. I can speak otherwise, but I thought it would help you to remain a little focused and structured if you have a PPT. यहाँ पे रखूं तो चलेगा? अच्छा ठीक है, तो आप मूव करो. How many of you here are passionate about gender? How many of you think about gender issues? You have to talk, huh? आपको बात करनी पड़ेगी. You need to speak to me, and let's have a dialogue and not make it a monologue. Okay. Yes, next slide. Okay, so I think I'll begin by saying that gender is one among several identities that we have. Hai na? So I'm a woman, I'm a cis woman, I'm of a certain age, I stay in a certain neighborhood in Mumbai, in a suburb of Mumbai in fact. I'm Savarna, I follow a certain religion. And of course, I belong to this country, right? I'm an Indian citizen. I live in Maharashtra. So there are several identities that I carry with myself, right? Gender is one among them, right? But in case of other identities, we are very quick to point out the element of discrimination. We are very quick to point out the kind of segregation or discrimination that happens with respect to other identities. When it comes to gender, maybe some very explicit and glaring discrimination we all know. So for example, we will all say, yes, bride burning, dowry death, these are of course forms of discrimination. But when discrimination is embedded in your everyday life, then it becomes a little difficult to recognize them as instances of discrimination. And one of the reasons why it goes unrecognized is because it is part of the norms. It's very normative. So, aisa to hota hi hai. It's very normative, so we don't really question it. And also is normalized. We tend to normalize almost everything associated. So we think what we call institutionalized gender roles, right? We learn early in life, very early in life, we start learning what it means to be a man or a woman. And at the moment, I'm locating it within a very binary framework. And then I'll move to, of course, move beyond what we call heteronormative regimes, right? So the whole idea is that we think it's perfectly normal and natural to be like this when it comes to be a woman and to be like this when it comes to a man. And I know that because when we receive students, when students come to us, and I also speak from my years of experience within the gender cell, when students come to us, they come with a lot of baggage. They are very clear in their mind what one is supposed to do. So when we have these kind of workshops, we encounter very interesting questions from them. And they're a little surprised, taken aback about what we have to say. And they find it quite unbelievable. But how is this possible, they will say. But how is this possible? And when you come at that age, generally one has a tendency to make very sweeping generalizations, right? So this is how men behave. This is how women behave. One student, for example, in FYB, and I'll give you a whole lot of examples so that you can relate to it, told me that, ma'am, I was teaching caste. And she said, but and we were talking about food and caste. And she said, but, we have rented a house and we have a tenant. We don't allow anybody who eats non-vegetarian food in our homes. And I said, okay, fine, but why is that? And she said, yeah, but that's a norm everywhere in India. So, and my question was, how much of India do we really know, right? India is not one. India is several identities, right? And so this is just one example, but there are several such examples when one has a tendency to make sweeping generalization. Then you take them through this entire process of unlearning and relearning. How does one shed that baggage? Unlearning is very important, and I keep saying this. You have to be ready to unlearn at every stage of your life. Like I have unlearned so many things that I thought I knew the best. And then through the students I learned, no, it's not like that. There are other ways of doing it as well, right? So we need to understand that when we take them through this whole 3-4 years of unlearning and relearning, at the end of it, they begin to what we call reflect a little bit. So the session that I'm doing today, I'm not too sure if we can have answers to all questions that I raise, but I will definitely leave you with certain questions for you to reflect on and ponder over and think about. If you can think about it a little bit, I think we have a certain shift has certainly happened somewhere. Next. When recognized, okay, supposing I said in the previous slide, I was just talking to you about how gender discrimination is something that is hard to especially when I say hard, what I mean are the everyday subtle ways in which discrimination happens without us realizing that this is discrimination, because we feel this is normal, ye to aisa hi hota hai. So a very simple thing, for example, think about it. You are in this college, right? Now, I did this little bit of study in my own college, right? We have an aided section and we have an unaided section. Do you have the sections here as well? I'm not too sure. I'm sure you must be having. Now, in the unaided sections for science or commerce, and in the aided sections of science and commerce, things are pretty different, the gender dimension. So when I walk into an aided class, what is an aided class? Aided is where, the fees are less, right? The fees are less, and self-finance is where the fee is high. Where the fee is less, if I enter into a commerce class, today I see there's parity in terms of numbers between girls and boys. When I walk into a science class, it's parity, almost, which was not the case earlier, right? But when you enter into an unaided section, you see the difference. The difference is you see more number of boys and less number of girls, and whether it's commerce or whether it is science, right? Whether it's profession, and because when you talk about BSc IT, when you talk about, banking and insurance, when you talk about other things, right? For example, these are all professional courses, and here we see a definite reduction in the number of girls, right? Now, this is a simple thing about how, gender discrimination unfolds. Now, many people will not see it as a problem. They will say, well, they have been able to pay the fee, so they are here. But what about the fact that it's okay for me to pay a high fee for my son, but I will think twice about paying such a high fee for my daughter, even now, right? So, therefore, it is important for us to understand that when we begin to recognize these patterns, it often becomes a women's issue. I clearly remember one thing. In 2002, when we started the Women's Development Cell, I think that was the year that Bombay University started the Women's Development Cell and said every college should have a Women's Development Cell. And the name was WDC. I clearly remember students on the steps in the classrooms egging on girls and saying, oh, dekho, there is a Women's Development Cell for you. I know, and we are not supposed to go. I mean, it's about women. So they are not talking to men, so why should we go there, right? And you know what we therefore did in our college? We changed the nomenclature from WDC to gender cell. We made it a gender issues cell, right? And of course, and then you realize the moment you change from women to gender, it becomes all-embracing. Right? So many men, when I'm, for example, people from LGBT community who identified as men and used the pronoun as he, came to us and asked, is the cell for us? Or is it only for the cis people? Right? And that actually got us thinking about these things. So therefore, when it becomes, very often, it becomes a women's issue. Oh, it's about gender equality, it's about women. We don't have a problem, men don't have a problem with it. The question is, why should women take this burden alone? Why should I take the burden? If it's a paper on feminism, a women teacher will teach it. But why? Right? Of course, it has to be taught well. And if the teacher knows how to teach well, she must teach. But just because she's a woman doesn't mean that she can teach the paper. Right? So, when it comes to gender and society paper, invariably it is handed over to women. And I'm also part of the Indian Sociological Society, and we do a lot of these conferences where I meet a lot of people from all over the country. So when I'm talking about this, I'm actually also drawing from experiences that comes from other states, not just from Maharashtra. And many of them talk about how, there was one man who presented a paper this time and he says, I teach a paper on gender and society. And I'm made fun of because of that, because I teach a paper on gender and society. So the questions then we ask is this about women alone? Should women only take the burden of this? So you suffer the consequences, so you talk about it. Right? Is it not the concern of others? And the next question that you have to in fact tell me is, who are the women that we talk about? Is she one or many? Are women all the same? All the women here, right? I mean, we are assuming that we are women. And I don't see a single boy in the class. We don't have, you have English and sociology doesn't have boys. The subjects don't have boys. Oh, it's a women's college. Yes. Oh my God. Oh my God. And I asked this question because in my college you will not find boys as well. It's a co-educational college. But when it comes to subjects, sociology, English, you have very few boys. Go to political science and economics and you will see a lot of them there, right? But even in women's college and other parts of the country, we do receive what are known as visiting students. And where, I mean, it may not be true here, but we do have where boys come. Boys are often invited from other colleges and from other universities, and they are part of it. So the question that I'm asking is, so you tell me, who are the women that we are talking about? Are all women the same? Are all of us sitting here the same? Are our experiences the same, issues the same, questions the same, problems the same, right? So women are not the same, women are many. Women do not constitute a homogeneous group, right? So when we talk about gender equality, we also need to ask this question. It's important that we complicate this a bit and ask, who are the women we are talking about, right? Because when it comes to, so for example, in America, when the women's movement started, and by the white middle class women, and they gave this clarion call for all women come together. The idea of sisterhood, the idea of we all need to get together, we are all being oppressed, men are the oppressors, so we need to join hands to fight. Black women refused to join hands with them. And they said, but why must we join you? Because, well, my man might be the oppressor at home, But in the public space, you are the oppressor of my man. And to put an end to one oppression, I will not join hands with another oppressor. Did you understand this? What were they talking about? Can someone tell me? Yes, very good. Who was that? Yes, so they were talking about racism. So there are different kinds of oppression. Simply putting an end to gender oppression doesn't make the world a wonderful place to live in, because you still have other problems to contend with and engage with, right? So the question is it only about her? Does it not affect others? So I'm coming to the big multi-headed monster, which is patriarchy, right? I always say patriarchy is multi-headed. Patriarchy is not just, it's also religion, it's also caste, it's also imperialism, it's also racism, all of that is also patriarchy. So the question here is, gender inequality or the patriarchal world that we live in does not affect us only. It impacts everybody, right? And therefore, if patriarchy is a system that has to be dismantled, all of us have to join hands to dismantle it, not just women, right? So gender equality, to address the central title of this talk, is certainly not about women alone. I think that is something that has been resolved long back, that gender today is about multiple genders that we talk about, right? It's no longer about men and women. It's about the trans identities as well. Which are the trans identities that I'm talking about? Which are the trans identities? Do we talk about, yes? Yes, plus, 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 right? So we talk about a host of trans identities. It can be a trans woman, it can be a trans man, it can be gender queer, it can be, bisexual, it can just be gay. Now there are hundreds of sort of gender identities, right? So the question that we raise here is, what about men? Are they not impacted by patriarchy? Okay. Now, next. I want to introduce bell hooks to you, right? Just because when I asked who is bell hooks, except for Yogesh, I don't think there was anyone else who raised their hand. Was it someone else? 2 hands went up. Anyone has heard about bell hooks? Okay, whenever I talk about gender, I can never ever not talk about bell hooks. And I recommend this to everybody. Please read up books written by bell hooks if you're interested in gender. They're very simple, easy to read, very engaging, deeply enriching, right? Who was she? She is no more. I have never, except for reading her books, I have not known anything about bell hooks, but when she passed away 3 years ago, it felt like a personal loss. So she was an American, she was a black feminist, a cultural critique, author, teacher, writer. She had taken on multiple kind of roles, right? Next, some of her books that she wrote, one of the books that you must read is Feminism is for Everybody. And I take on this idea of why gender equality is meant for everybody and not just for women. I take it from her particular work on Feminism is for Everybody, and I'm going to put that before you. She used to say, the talk about gender equality, she never ever liked talking about gender equality. She said, there is no such thing as gender equality. We are not asking for rights equal to those of men. It cannot be. She problematized this concept, and she said, men and women are not the same. We are different, right? We are different, but we are equal. And therefore, we can't ask for rights equal to those of men, because if you do that, you're actually institutionalizing masculine standards, masculine norms, and that's not what we want. We don't want to become like men. That's not what the battle is for. That's what not the struggle is for, right? It's something else. Is to be recognized to do things that we want to do. It's about exercising our choices, right? Of course, exercising those choices is not very simple. There are pressures and constraints, but she said it's about exercising choices, right? And the moment you make it gender equality, invariably you bring men into the picture, and it actually becomes becoming like men. And the whole agenda then, from being a very progressive one, it goes back. We move 2 steps backward, right? But she says, if you want to talk about gender equality, she says you need to understand one thing, that talk about gender equality, feminism cannot be confined to classrooms. It cannot happen in conversations like this. She said you need to take it out. Take it out where? Take it out to, she said, take it to malls, take it to theaters, take it to wherever you want to, with public parks, the way you have these big banners everywhere. So for example, once I was in a mall, and when I came out of the parking lot, I saw something very interesting written on the wall. It said, when men are angry, they go to war. When women are angry, they come to malls. They do shopping. Right? A very interesting, I mean, of course, this is the capitalist talking to you. We live in a neoliberal era. So kind of making it very clear that it's women who go shopping. And when they're angry, when they're upset, when they're sad, what they do is shop, but men don't, right? A very wonderful way of reinforcing the gender roles that we keep fighting against, right? Now we go to the next slide. So she says these predetermined gender scripts are harmful to all genders. Now what are these predetermined gender scripts? What are the predetermined gender scripts? So, a simple question that I'm asking you, why did you take admission in Nanavati Women's College? Any specific reason? Don't tell me you live close by, right? Any one of you who wanted to go to a college far away? They're not going to say now because all teachers are present, everybody is present. But what I'm asking you is, why did you decide to take sociology and English literature? Why did you decide to study arts? Can somebody tell me? Yes. Okay. Anyone who wanted to do science or has done science but changed to arts, done science in 11th, 12th and changed to arts? Yes. Why did you change?
Before I wanted to do in IT subjects, but from science field only. But then my parents were like, go for teaching. So then for teaching, I want to do for English subjects.
Acha, your parents said you go for teaching, not hardcore technical subjects. I mean, teaching is good for women, right? I was also told that. I wanted to be an IS officer. Why do you want to be an IS officer? Why do you want to write civil services? You'll be in the, it's tough, and, you perhaps, we end up neglecting the family. Your gender role has to be mainstream. So I was told, why don't you become a teacher? So teaching is what? Easy? Soft? Right? Now when they say that I have just no time for myself or the family, they say it would have been better if you had done civil services, perhaps, right? So why does everybody want us to become teachers? What is it with teaching? What is it with teaching that women, and we do see a large number of women in teaching, correct? Yeah? You go to, even in science, you will see there are a large number of women teachers at the undergraduate level. As you start moving up, PG, research, laboratory, then you see a dwindling number of women. You see women dwindling, right? Now, why do you think that happens? Anyone else who wanted to do science or commerce but was told no, arts is better for you? Or anyone with 90% is doing arts and was told that what are you doing here, you should have done science? Right? Okay? All right, yes, right? Why do you think, so it is a fact that not everything comes out of choices. Very often we are pushed into doing certain things because it is supposed to be good for us, right? And it is something that will not clash with a primary identity of being a homemaker. That's the whole idea, right? So this is what she describes as predetermined gender scripts. Do I even have to tell you? You know it all, right? What books once I entered into a shop and I said I want to buy an umbrella. The shopkeeper asked me, is it for a male or is it for a man or for a woman? I said, I just want an umbrella. I'm not even, what does it have to do with being a man or a woman? He said, no, because unisex nahi hai, abhi alag alag hai. So what is it in your life that is not gendered? Can you tell me? Can you tell me a single thing in your lives that is not gendered? Let's begin from the time you are born, the names that are given to you, labeling that happens, the gender identity that is given to you, names, toy play, leisure time activities. Think about it as you grow up. Choice of subjects later in college, even in school, social roles, occupational roles, psychological traits, you name it. Anything that is not gendered. Can anybody tell me here? I'll be very happy to know about this. Anything that is not gendered? So you agree everything is gendered in your life, right? Now you tell me this that means everything is predetermined, the predetermined gender scripts that she's talking about, right? Everything is predetermined. Predetermined by what? The society, the culture, the neighborhood, and the family norms, right? Religion. Now she says that this is harmful to all genders, right? And she says very nicely, she says, interestingly, men will never talk about patriarchy. And again, here I don't want to generalize. Some men do talk about patriarchy, right? But generally, men will not talk about patriarchy because they think patriarchy has to do with feminism, it has to do with gender identity, it has to do with women. Why should I talk about it, right? But the point that she's making, she says, in and out, every day of our lives, we are just surrounded by patriarchy. Patriarchy is a system, and she calls it patriarchal masculinity, right? Masculinity. And later, from masculinity, she moves to masculinity, right? And she says it's extremely dangerous and harmful to all. But men don't want to talk about it. Women keep learning about it in textbooks, in schools, in colleges, and everywhere. Patriarchy means what? Patriarchy means what? What is patriarchy? You have a paper on gender? Do you do gender? You do gender? In English or in sociology? You have? No? Loudly. Do you have a paper on gender? You have a standalone paper or you do these little topics in other courses? You have? Concept, क्या नाम है पेपर का? Nothing. Women issues है? अच्छा, women issues है, वहाँ पे पेट्रियार्की पढ़ाते हैं? पेट्रियार्की है? पढ़ाई हो गई है कि होना बाकी है? तो what is patriarchy? क्या है patriarchy? Societal norms? Norms क्या कहते हैं about patriarchy? So all social norms about patriarchy? एक example दोगे patriarchy का? I mean, if you can, I'm not insisting, but if you can. Patriarchy means what? Yes? Male dominance, absolutely. Anything else? Is it only about male dominance? Primarily, yes. But patriarchy is a social political system that centers men, that believes men have to be dominant, that believes men have to be superior, primary, and women have to stand behind them. Women have to be inferior. Who can be patriarchal? Who can be patriarchal? Chalo, let me ask. Who can be patriarchal? कौन patriarchal होता है? हम सब, right? We are all patriarchal. We are all patriarchal because patriarchy doesn't spare anybody, right? We are all patriarchal. Now, so essentially then patriarchy is a system, right? It is a system, okay? A system that is extremely harmful to all genders. You agree with me on that? Right? Because this predetermined gender scripts are for everybody, right? सबके लिए बनता है, right? And she says, men don't even realize that they are in the grip of patriarchy. They don't even realize how harmful patriarchy is to them, right? I have had a number of boys who have been students, very few. And उन लोगों ने at different points of time मुझे ये भी बोला है कि I would love to be a house husband. But will the society ever allow me to do that, right? I know of so many boys who love to grow their nails, okay, but are often taunted for that. And they say we can never be ourselves in this world, right? There have been, last week में एक article पढ़ रही थी Indian Express में, where an author who is based in UK, she writes that, she says, I wanted a daughter, but I have two sons, okay? And that's all right. I was happy with these two sons, but I wanted to raise them as good human beings, okay? Without the monster of patriarchy confronting them early in life. एंड शी सेड मैं दोनों को पिंक पहनाती थी क्योंकि मुझे पिंक बहुत अच्छा लगता था, तो पिंक पहनाती थी एंड यू नो कभी कभी लंबे बाल रखती थी, कभी चोटी भी बनाती थी, बिकॉज यूज्ड टू बी वेरी लिटिल चिल्ड्रन, डजंट मैटर वेदर बॉय और गर्ल, चोटीज बहुत अच्छी लगती हैं. She said one day when my son was in pre-primary, he came back home, he was extremely sad and he was distraught, disheartened, crying. And I said, what happened? He said, Mama, kal se mujhe pink nahi pehnana aap. I don't want to wear pink dresses. This was pre-primary, so they could wear their home dress and go. Don't make me wear pink because I become the butt of all jokes. And she very beautifully writes that it doesn't really matter कि मैं क्या चाहती हूँ और मैं घर में जितना भी कोशिश कर लूँ, there are other things that you are exposed to all the time outside the home. So finally, patriarchy confronted him. And in spite of my efforts, right, he was confronted by that monster and he was very distraught and sad. And I go back, and then she went back to dress, you know, making him wear other colors, primarily blue and other colors, but which are not really seen as belonging or as identifying with a certain gender. Right? So these are small ways in which, I mean, so many of my students have said, ma'am, because I've taken sociology, people say, तुम sociology में क्या कर रहे हो? Or English literature में क्या कर रहे हो? This is also, and I was a very good student. I was doing science, but I didn't like science. I found science very dry, uninteresting, and he used a very nice word. He said emotionally crippled. So I didn't want to do science, and he changed to arts. But he said it was very difficult. I had to literally fight with my parents to convince them that I want to do art. So these examples are there before us. You know, you just have to keep your eyes and ears open. मैं हमेशा बोलती हूँ जेंडर सीखने के लिए आपको बुक्स पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है, राइट? आप अपना लाइफ ही एक एग्जाम्पल है. इफ यू कीप योर आईज एंड ईयर्स ओपन, if you become sensitive to things around you and you see how these scripts are there everywhere around us, you see the script everywhere, right? And absolutely there is, and if you defy, the consequences are terrible, I'll give you a small story of some, I mean, I'm not going to name the college, I'm not going to name the subject, but a little story of what happens when you challenge and you defy patriarchal norms. So we had someone coming to us saying that I was married 2 months ago and I went to Rajasthan and my husband is a terrible man. I didn't want to marry. My parents said, "नहीं शादी कर लो, कुछ नहीं होगा, सब ठीक हो जाएगा." She didn't want to marry because she said, "I'm very uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable with men." Now the husband, of course, insisted on physical intimacy, and she said she was not ready for it. Right? He started beating her. And उनका कुछ रिवाज है within 2 months of being married and being in the in-laws home, आपको भेजते हैं to the parents' home. So she came back to the natal family, and her parents were very angry with her. And they said, but he's your husband. And why did you not listen to him? We are not going to support you. She said, I don't want to go back to Rajasthan. They said, no, you have to go back. But brother, in fact, threatened her. So not knowing where to go, what to do, she came running to one of the teachers. And the teachers, of course, called me up and said, what do we do, Leena, can we, because she said, please find me an accommodation. I don't want to go back home. So we said, okay, we have a legal cell. We have a legal cell in our university, which looks into some of these things. It's Indira Jaising Legal Aid Clinic. And because I look into it, so she called me. So I said, okay, send her to us. But she said she can't go because her parents will not like it. So with great difficulty, on another day, she came to us. We heard a story and she refused to go back. She said, मुझे घर वापस जाना ही नहीं है, right? We said, but you have to go back to your parents. No, she said, if I go back, I will never be able to, I don't know what's going to happen to me. So we immediately got in touch with a lawyer. Our own students are wonderful. They bring in a lot of resources with them. And we said, what do we do? So she put us in touch with an organization where she could go. And even in shelters, the shelters don't allow you unless you have a police complaint. But some shelters do allow you. And she happened to put us in touch with one of the shelters. Now this girl, we sent her there. We said, immediately tell your parents and say that you are there. She went willy-nilly, happily. And we said, it's a long battle ahead. Are you ready for it? She says, yes, but I'm very sure I want to fight this. I want to lodge a complaint. I want to take legal action. Right? Now, she was there. And, then of course 2 days she was there. Her parents came to know of it, and they knew of the consequences that might follow if there was a police action. And this is something that really scares of people, right? They don't want all that jhanjat. Finally, they came, they pleaded with her, they recorded videos saying, we will not do anything to you, and then the girl went back, right? Now what was she doing? She was doing a simple thing. She was challenging patriarchal norms, correct? She was just challenging patriarchal norms. Now see, if gender equality is not just a women's issue, it's about allyship, it's about being an ally, right? It's about solidarity, it's about collectivity, right? Now in cases like this, all that breaks down because nobody wants jhanjat, right? So the question that you need to ask yourself, are you ready to be an ally? Are you ready to stand up? Are you ready? I'm not saying you have to hold a banner and go on the streets. Very simple things that you can do. Just stand with people when they need it the most. Her friends stood with her. So the consequences of challenging patriarchy can be enormous. It's not easy. Therefore, most of us fall in line. We don't want trouble, right? We don't want unpleasantness in our life. So most of us just fall in line till it becomes a major issue and an issue of violence, right? So Bell Hooks says that, why is it that men don't talk about patriarchy? Right? And she says a very interesting thing. She says, I don't like this thing that, in patriarchy, everybody says, see, men are oppressors and women are all oppressed. She said that is completely wrong. She says one of the reasons why even today we continue to talk about being an ally and that everybody has to come together to create a wonderful place to live in. She says one of the reasons why this talk of gender equality, this talk of feminism became extremely unpopular is because the early women's rights movement discarded men. Literally, they kept men away from them. But there was a context and history of why they kept men away. Because men were not allowing them to function. वो सब कुछ अपने आप कर लेते थे. And that's why women thought, do we not have a voice? Can we not speak up? Will men also take up our issues? हमको बोलने ही नहीं देते. हमारे बारे में बात करते हैं, पर हमको बोलने नहीं देते हैं. That's very interesting. You talk about our issues, but you don't allow us to talk. Right? That's why they kept men at a distance. But ये करके, the whole idea of gender equality took on different connotations and became very unpopular. And therefore she says, I hate this idea that men are oppressors. But she said a very interesting thing. उन्होंने ये बोला that patriarchy affects both of us, men and women, right? But it gives men बहुत सारे security, बहुत सारा privileges which we don't get as women. But it gives men a lot of privileges, right? But many men feel uncomfortable with patriarchy. They feel they're in the grip of patriarchy. And one of the things that they feel most is not being able to be full, not being able to lead full and wholesome lives. What is full and wholesome lives? Right? To be able to do things which are generally identified with being a woman. Right? Cooking, for example. Right? I mean, the best chefs in the world are men. They're not women, they're men. But when it comes to men cooking at home, it becomes an issue. I remember during COVID, those reels आपने देखा होगा ना, when everybody was at home and men were cooking, और वो जो पूरा entire building knew that men were cooking. Women cook every day, but who knows? And why is anybody interested? They are supposed to cook, but when men cook, it becomes news. Right? Isn't it? So now the question is that, so these are the privileges that patriarchy gives men. A man can go out of home at 3 a.m. in the morning to the railway station. A woman will have to think 100 times. Right? Patriarchy gives men a lot of advantage, but also a lot of disadvantages. I mean, I clearly see it in my own family. There's a 22-year-old boy. And he's just 21, 22, just finished his BBA from NMIMS. And there's so much of pressure on him to do a job. And there's another girl in the family who is 27-year-old. She also has a job, she's a lawyer. But she's told, take your time to settle down. I know litigation takes time. No problem, aram se karo. So there's no pressure on her to earn money. Right? But for a boy, you need to be settling down early. And of course, it's not as simple as that. I mean, class factor bhi hai, jahan pe the parents are dependent on the son, they will want him to work early. And maybe in the case of the girls, they're not dependent. But I'm talking of a case where it's not so well off. And you see the difference immediately. So patriarchy definitely gives you these advantages. So a child, simple things. A child is sick at home, a mother at work is left feeling guilty all the time. All the time. How did you leave a sick child at home? But a man goes to office and the child is sick and he asks for leave, he might be considered effeminate. And we know there are organizations that are not very kind about it. I mean, we have reps from Population First and Pooja, where is Pooja? Okay. Pooja would know that we did a little bit of collaborative study on, which was sponsored by UNFPA on the media houses in Bombay, major media houses in Bombay. And जब हमने वो study किया था, very interesting things came to light. This was a study on gender sensitivity and gender inclusivity. And when we asked women certain questions, our students did that study along with us, and when they asked women about how is media में कैसा है, आपको discrimination है क्या? They said, discrimination की बात ही नहीं है, media अलग है, media में कुछ ऐसा होता ही नहीं, it's all about your work. It's all about how sincere you are, how good you are with your work. That's it. It's about your performance. But there were some women who told us some very interesting things. They said in media, it's all a boys' club. Right? And if you are going on maternity leave, if you get pregnant, if you get married and then you want to have children, sab denge, maternity leave denge, extra denge, sab hoga. But when you come back, you realize that you have lagged behind. Others have just gone ahead of you and the organization is not very sympathetic towards it. Excepting a few organizations which were very different. I have to also add that. Not all were like that, right? But, and they said this is how patriarchy benefits men. And they said, after 8 p.m., हम सबको घर जाना होता है. Because we want to go back to our families. But men stay back. Why? Because there is this small talk and over chai, nashta, coffee, drinks, there is discussion about performance, about promotion, about pay, about increment. वहाँ सब हो जाता है. And we are not part of it, so we lose out. Right? So these are the ways in which patriarchy operates. But men also said some very interesting things about it. Men said, we want paternity leave. Right? But invariably when we talk about paternity leave, हमको बोला जाता है तुम क्या करोगे 15 दिन ले लो बाकी कुछ करो आ जाओ. And we really want to stay back, look after babies, but we don't get an opportunity. I mean, imagine, I mean perhaps Yogesh will know it better. I think paternity leave continues to be 15 days. It continues to be 15 days. And maternity leave is 6 months. Can anybody tell me why is it like this? Wonderful. Fully paid? Roy's, yeah. Now it's different. So, can anybody tell me कि अगर maternity leave 6 महीने क्यों होता है, paternity leave 15 दिन क्यों होता है? क्यों? It's a very simple thing, no? Why is it? What if I make it reverse? Say, maternity leave से 2 महीने हो गया and paternity leave becomes 6 months. तो क्या होगा? क्या होगा? I can see some very sort of startled expressions and so the point is the mother is the central to the baby. That's what we think, right? Motherhood becomes very important. But that's what people are asking. What is it about motherhood that, except for breastfeeding, that only a woman can do and a man can't? Right? We all learn. At the end of it is all about learning. right? And therefore, it is important. So you see, this is how, again, just to wake you up in case you are going to sleep, a simple question. How many of you will change your surname after marriage? How many of you will change your surname after marriage? No one will change? Really? That's wonderful. Yeah? If you? If you? Hmm. Hmm. So when interesting, okay. No, there are quite a few who don't. There are quite a few who don't. And it's not required by law either. Many don't. Not even quite a few. There are many who don't change. Many. Many. But supposing when I ask the boys in the class, how many of you would change your surname after marriage, they all start giggling. Right? The question that how can you even ask us this? And why are you even asking us that? But what I'm trying to tell you is very simple. This is how patriarchy impacts us. Right? So ultimately, what is Bell Hooks saying? She is saying this entire talk of gender equality or this entire thing about gender roles comes from where? It comes from patriarchy. Next. Okay. And finally, she has written a very interesting book, Aap Wo Padho, where she talks about feminist theory from the center to the margins, from the margins to the center. And she has one whole chapter on men comrades in struggle. So she says how it is important that we need men. Patriarchy is a system that has to be dismantled. And if it is a system that has to be dismantled, all of us have to be together in it. And she makes a very powerful point at the end of it. She says, and the question that she asks, I want to ask you. What is the kind of world that you want to live in? What kind of society that you want to live in? आपका कुछ imagination होगा ना? I mean, we all encounter numerous challenges, numerous roadblocks. तब लगता है कि why it is like this? दूसरा अलग type का world क्यों नहीं है? Anyone, please tell me what is the kind of world that you want to live in? Are you happy with the way things are? Are you happy? What is it that you're not happy about? And how can you change it? Any talk becomes useful only when you participate. Nice. Yeah. Otherwise it becomes very boring. For me also it gets very boring. And I always engage with students who are like, who are sort of, of course, post-lunch sessions, Yogesh is a problem always, people tend to go to, it's afternoon time, it's really difficult that way. So, yeah, so just tell me. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. What you said is very nice. Yes, absolutely. Wonderful. I just love that. And for that, what do we need? Walking is a very liberating experience. To be able to walk without fear is a very liberating experience. If you walk with fear, it's not a liberating experience, right? We often take students for a walk और हम हमेशा बोलते हैं पढ़ाई क्लासरूम में कभी-कभी बहुत बोरिंग हो जाता है because चार दीवारों के अंदर एक ही the teacher is talking and the students are lost. That's not how you learn. How do you make learning an interesting experience? I think I should have just taken them out for a walk on the streets because walking is a pedagogy. जब आप चलते हो आप बहुत सीखते हो. The walk outside this college, this street, right? If I have to teach you about your neighborhood, book से जब पढ़ाऊंगी, it can be very boring. But if I take you out and we go for a walk, we go to the the nukkad, the gully, the street corner, have a cup of coffee, sit there, have a chat, we see many things. And when we see those things, we learn much better than what books can teach us, right? So when you said that I want the whole idea of walking, many people have said that. You know, in Iran, there was this person, I don't remember her name. She has The Wind in My Hair. If you read the book, The Wind in My Hair. And what does this mean, the wind in my hair? And she says, she has long hair, this author, and she says, when I leave my hair open and the wind blows and the breeze and my hair just goes all over and I feel wonderful. Lekin when I go to school, college, I have to cover myself. I have to veil myself, right? And the day I'll be able to do that walk, like you said, walk aram se with my hair left open and wo breeze and hair blowing, that is true freedom for me. But you tell me now, you said a very good thing. Now you tell me, how is it possible? कैसे हो सकता है? हो सकता है क्या? लेकिन उसके लिए क्या क्या करना है? Who will make the rules? Government will make the rules. Anything else? Our families have nothing to do? So, okay, family comes in, you are saying government comes in, government has to make the rules. But if government makes the rules for the family, family will not listen. No, does family listen to all the rules that we have? It doesn't, right? और क्या क्या चाहिए फिर? Government हो गया, family हो गया. You want to change your family? Okay. Okay, all right, okay. What else? Anything else? और क्या करना होगा? तो ऐसे तो बहुत लॉज बनते हैं, बहुत रूल्स बनते हैं, गवर्नमेंट बहुत करती है, पर इम्प्लीमेंट तो नहीं होता. यू ऑल नो, क्योंकि जिसको इम्प्लीमेंट करना होता है वो करते नहीं है, वो अलग, उनकी सोच अलग होती है. तो देयर इज अ गैप, वी ऑल नो देयर इज अ गैप, राइट? सो हाउ डू वी मेक इट वर्क? बोलो, थिंक ऑफ व्हाट एल्स यू कैन डू. Education, okay. Family, education, government, what else? Any other sector that you're leaving? Okay. Go to the next. Okay. I think I have said this, well, skip, go to the next. Okay, so this is the question that I asked you. What kind of world do you want to live in? You all agree that you want a world that is egalitarian, fair, just and happy? Happy world? Is this what we all want? Right? Huh? How do you create this world? And the question that I'm asking you is, supposing hypothetically gender equality हम achieve कर लेते हैं, कैसे भी हो, rules fools बना के सब अच्छा हो जाता है, right? तो वो world, will that world become a nice place to live in? Will that world become a nice place to live in? क्यों? Why not? But you have achieved what you set out to achieve, which is the title of the talk is gender equality, right? And we are saying gender equality is about everybody, not just about women, है ना? तो gender equality achieve कर लिया, everybody has supported you, you know, they are with you in collectivity, they have expressed solidarity, world has become a wonderful place. तो अभी क्या प्रॉब्लम है? Will that world not be a happy place? Think, will that world not be a happy place? Yeah? Think of the identities that I told you when I began my talk. Go back to that. I said I'm not just a woman, right? I belong to a certain caste, I follow a certain religion, I come from a certain neighborhood in Bombay, I come with many privileges, some disabilities, right? When I say I come with privileges, I'm not talking about money, I'm not talking about class, but simply the privilege of being able to speak in a certain way, simply the privilege of teaching in a certain college, which is considered, you know, a premier college. Now, what does it mean? These are the privileges I'm talking about, right? So I'm not just a woman. As I said, I follow a certain religion, I belong to a certain caste, I come from a certain neighborhood, I am an Indian citizen, right? Multiple identities that I have, right? And of course, I'm an able-bodied person. I'm an able-bodied person. That also is a privilege, right? So then think about this, right? And this is where I bring in bell hooks, and she says a wonderful thing. She says, देखो, if you achieve gender equality, right, don't think it will be a wonderful place to live in, because you still have to fight many other battles. Hai na? What are the other battles that you have to still fight? Think about what's happening. Think about the present reality. Think about where we are today. Think about what are the challenges that you face in a city like Mumbai. Caste oppression, very good. Then? Very good. Huh? Poverty, class, absolutely brilliant. Or? Unemployment. Or? Civic sense. Or kya hai? Racism, right here in India. Yes. What else? क्या डोमेस्टिक that I'm saying gender equality हो गया, domestic violence नहीं होगा, सोच लो खत्म हो गया domestic violence, right? और क्या क्या problems है वो मैं पूछ रही हूँ, और battles क्या है? हाँ? Communal violence. You said it all. Lovely. What's your name? You are from English or sociology? Lovely. So that is, she has given you the answer to that, and that is what Bell Hooks says. She says, don't think कि if you achieve gender equality, सब कुछ बढ़िया हो जाएगा. You will still have to fight multiple battles. Imperialism, racism, classism, ableism, discrimination on the basis of geography. People who come from Northeast have to face a lot of racial segregation. And to add to that, in the case of India, is casteism. So she said, please understand one thing. Go to the next slide. Understand the interconnected nature of our oppressions. Understand the interconnected nature of our multiple identities. Right? Never ever think that gender equality ho gaya, so we still have to fight these battles. You have to understand this. Therefore, you know, I always say this. What is feminism? I cannot not end this lecture without talking about feminism. What is feminism? Bolo. What is feminism? पढ़ा है about feminism? थोड़ा सा. Women's issues में feminism पढ़ा है? नहीं? Okay. What is feminism? Who is a feminist? Sorry? Yeah? Equal opportunities. Okay. But which is a feminist? Equal opportunities between and among whom? Huh? Sorry? Between and among whom? Okay, let's take equal opportunities. Right? You were saying something? Yeah?
Feminist is a person or individual who speaks about women and their rights.
Okay. Feminist is a person who speaks about women and their rights. Anyone else? What is feminism? आप क्या सोचते हो फेमिनिज्म के बारे में? सोशल मीडिया में तो इतना आता है. If you are on, who is a feminist? Is there anyone who is a feminist here? Everybody is a feminist? But you can't speak for others, no? They will have to speak for themselves, right? That's a true ally, by the way. A true ally is one who of course, supports them. But everybody agrees with her, then I'm fine with it. Everybody is a feminist here? All of you are feminist? That's a wonderful thing. I run an entire course on gender studies. I've been doing it for 12 years now. And where at the end of the course, when I ask them, we do an interesting thing called reflection, जहाँ पे मैं पूछती हूँ उनको कि उनका about course के बारे में बात करने के लिए. And one of the things I ask them is, are you a feminist? And many say no. And then, or not just that, they say, I believe in what feminism stands for, but I am not a feminist. I will not call myself a feminist. Some say, I want to be a feminist, but I feel I have to learn more about feminism before I can call myself feminist. And some say, I want to be a feminist, but there's a lot of burden, and I'm not ready to take on the burden now. तो क्या है ये feminist? And here I'm hearing everybody is a feminist, and I'm so happy. Because my others say no, they're very clear about. So then, but feminism is a much, what can I say? Feminism is a word. I mean, 4 साल पहले a yagna was conducted in Karnataka to sound the death of feminism and feminist. Do you know that? There is a group called Men. it's a men collective to save the world from feminism. और आप बोल रहे हो कि you're all feminists, which is a nice thing to hear. So, feminism is a much maligned word. You agree? People talk about feminism without actually understanding what is feminism all about. So, many people say, who are feminists? When I ask, I make them write. I should have done this exercise with you. I say, 5 words that come to your mind when I say feminist. Can you tell me? 5 words that come to your mind. Or 5 words, 3 words that come to your mind when I say feminist. 2 students have already spoken. One of them said equal opportunities, another said stands up for women. Just tell me 2, 3 words. When I say feminism, what comes to your mind? Yeah? Doesn't matter. Don't feel, whatever you say, everything is right here. Label? So that comes to your mind. Anything else that comes? Huh? Something like that. Please feel free. Everything is okay. We are not having an examination. This is just a conversation. Okay, anyone else? Or quick, bolo, yes? Women's rights, absolutely. और कोई? Tell me, feminism, जब मैं बोलती हूँ feminism, क्या आता है? मतलब, what are the words that come to your mind? Power, okay. Equality, she said, huh? Independence. Anything else? Anything else? Women empowerment, okay. Anything else? Humanist, yeah, humanist. So you would prefer humanism to feminism? You said a very interesting thing. Wait, someone else who wanted to say something here? Huh. Okay, do you have a board? You have a board, nahi, na? Writing thing. Okay. So 3, 4 things that I'll pick up from what you said. Okay. You said initially, and by the way, thank you so much for your responses. Such wonderful things I heard about who are feminists. I have not heard such good things about feminism in a very long time. So I'm quite thrilled. When you said initially you thought feminism is someone who stands for just, what did you say? Come again? It's not, huh? Right. So that's a very interesting thing that she thought it was a fight or a debate between men and women, right? Also, please note, in all that you have told me about feminism, the word man has not been used even once. Feminism is also about men. Gender equality is also about men, no? So the kind of things that I get to hear, so when you say it's only about uplifting ourselves, we'll go to Bell Hooks, who says feminism is not just about us alone. It's about fighting multiple battles, not just about ourselves, not just about gender, it's about everything. A feminist will also fight for caste discrimination. A feminist will also fight for racism. You know, a feminist is not someone who says, but it has nothing to do with gender, why should I fight? A feminist is one who wants to make the world a nice place to live in. And anything that comes in the way of that becomes definitely a reason for me to stand up for it. I mean, there are feminists who fight for men. You know, Jab Me Too movement hua and many other things hua, and you know, feminism acquired a bad name. Many women said that when we receive sexual harassment complaints against men, it is women alone who are supporting men and saying they are not the aggressors. Perhaps this is not a right complaint, right? The question here is, or when you said humanism, why, see, both of you have said very interesting things. You said it is about uplifting ourselves. She said humanism is a better term because it is about all genders, right? Not just. But then who says that feminism is only about women? This is something that we need to dismantle and discard. Feminism is not about women alone. Feminism started by talking about women. Absolutely correct. But feminism as a theory, as a concept, as a movement, as an ideology has evolved tremendously. Feminism today is not what it was in the 19th century. Today, feminism speaks with multiple voices for everybody. And you are not a feminist if you are not standing up for everybody, including men, if they are oppressed. You stand up for anybody who is oppressed, who is unequal, and you extend a hand of support. That is the true meaning of a feminist, right? So when you, the good things that you spoke about, I'll tell you what I hear about when I speak about feminism. And I ask students, before the lecture begins, I ask, what do you think about feminism? And they say, anti-man, feminist is someone who doesn't like to get married. Feminist is someone who doesn't like to have children. A feminist is someone who is always fighting all the time, debating, acrimonious, aggressive. Feminist is someone who has short hair, परकटी महिलाएं, short hair. This was also told in parliament कि आप किसके लिए लड़ रहे हैं? वो जो feminist हैं, वो तो short hair, परकटी महिलाएं, वो खाली crisp कपड़ा पहन के घूमती हैं. We don't want those kind of women. I'm telling you what happened in parliament, right? So the idea is feminists are they. Interesting things. I mean, feminists are unreasonable. Feminists just keep fighting and fighting and fighting. They don't want peace in society. This also I have heard, right? And then, of course, at the end of the course, this entire thing shifts quite a bit, if not entirely, right? And where have these notions about feminism come, right? You must watch this film by Paramita Vora. It's called, teachers, right? You can screen this film, Unlimited Girls. And there's an interesting clip in the film where there is a visitor to the house, or maa bolti hai, she calls her daughter, she's meri beti hai. And so this visitor, the guest asks her, so girl, what do you want to be when you grow up? She thinks and she says, I want to be a feminist. And immediately the scene changes. And what the next thing that we see is she turns into an egg, right? Or she turns into a dirty creature the next moment. And she says, please take me out from this. I don't want to be a feminist. I want to be a normal human being. So the commentator then says, yeah, you want to be a feminist? You want to be ugly? You want to be a duckling? Ugly duckling? You want to be hard-boiled like an egg? She says, no, I don't want to be anything like this. So then the whole idea is, don't want to be like a feminist. Feminists are like this, right? So it's a satire, it's a humor. But the whole idea is this. I mean, I'll recommend another book, you love it. This book is called Trouble with Women. Probably some of you who can teach. And this book is not, it has only pictures, right? It doesn't have any text, just two lines in each page. And there were interesting stories about how women were considered in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century. What being a woman was like. So if you're a woman, so if you had an opinion, अगर आप बात करते हो, कुछ opinion रखते हो, कुछ बोलते हो, articulate करते हो, then you are not a woman, right? Then you are considered a fallen woman. Because who are women? Women are only women who work in the domestic sphere, who do all work, looking after babies, that's it. Women are not supposed to study, women are not supposed to go to school. If you ever express an opinion, it's the end of the world for you. So when we were having the debates during the British era, and one of the things was, don't educate women. One of our top national leaders had said, don't educate women. If you educate women, she will lose her nationality. That means she will lose citizenship. I don't know if you've heard about Rakma Bai. Rakma Bai ke bare mein suna hai? No? I think you need to learn about Rakma Bai, a woman in the 19th century who after getting married refused to join her husband. So when she was 8 years old, she was married to this boy. And when she started menstruating, she was told, you have to go to your husband's house. She said, no, I will not join him. So the husband said, how can you not join me? It's my right, right? We are married. And by the time she was well educated. Husband did nothing. He fell into bad company. She said, I'm not going to join a man like this. I refuse to join him. The matter went to court. And the court ordered and said that if you do not, it's about conjugal rights, restitution of conjugal rights, you have to join. Initially, the lower court supported her and said, what she's saying is right. If she doesn't want to join her husband, she cannot be forced. The matter went in appeal to High Court. The Britishers got scared. उन्होंने सोचा, we don't want to interfere with Indian rituals, customs. फिर हमारे लिए problem हो जाएगा. Already struggle शुरू हो गया for freedom, right? And there was a judge there who told her, you have to join your husband. If you do not join your husband, you will have to go to jail. She said, I'm ready to go to jail. This was 19th century, right? Imagine, it was not the era that we live in. And this woman had the guts to say, I'm not going to join my husband, I'll go to jail. Finally, they worked out a compromise. She was very rich and a lot of money was given to the man so that he kind of remains quiet. And this was the story that was told to every father and mother who said, I want to educate my daughter. And they were told, you want to educate your daughter? Rakhma bai jaisi ho jayegi. That is what education does to women. तो मत पढ़ाओ उनको अगर पढ़ाना है तो सिलाई सिखाओ खाना बनाना सिखाओ. This was a curriculum in fact of the education at that. Lot of debate. Okay, women want to go to school and college, but उनको क्या पढ़ाएं उधर? So teach them sewing, teach them stitching, teach them doing embroidery, homemaking skills, little bit of English, poetry, thoda sa science, and science was a complete no-no. Why do women need to learn science? Right? So teach them, that will help them to become good homemakers. Right? So this is the kind of understanding. Next, and so finally, to end it, I just want you to go away with certain ideas. Please understand gender as a continuum. And gender, the gender identity, not gender, gender identities, right? When you talk about gender identities, there are multiple identities. We need to be respectful for all identities. Some of the identities we may not be comfortable with, right? I have students in my class who are very uncomfortable with some other students who belong to who say they are from a different gender, and they said, ma'am, what it is, it can only be boy and a girl. We need to be respectful of all, right? We cannot decide for others what their gender identity is. You know, it is a matter of self-identification, which is very, if you want to be an ally, how do you be an ally? You are an ally when you're mindful of these things. You are an ally who says, I may not know enough about you, but do tell me. I want to learn. Right? But again, don't put the burden on them to teach you everything. Also make a little bit of attempt to learn on your own. Then you are a real ally. An ally is one who doesn't speak for them, but wants them to speak. You have to pass the mic around and ask them to speak, right? But you support them when they speak. That's a true ally. If you want, we all by now, I think, have established this enough, that it becomes everyone's responsibility to create a wonderful world that we live in. And if patriarchy is coming in the way of creating that wonderful world, patriarchy has to be dismantled. Patriarchy is harmful to all genders, right? All genders. And we have to dismantle it. I'll tell you one little story. In my class, I was teaching a paper on Hindu personal law. There was a girl sitting and she was not interested. I said, what happened? You don't want to, you seem very disinterested. She said, ma'am, I don't know why, but this topic doesn't connect with me. I said, why? And she said, see, I have a same-sex partner. The country doesn't allow me to marry a same-sex partner. So why should I learn about custody, guardianship, marriage, divorce? I mean, मुझे कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता इससे. I'm really not interested. And I was really taken aback. So you see the courses that you design, you know, how students identify themselves with it. There was another boy in my class, very interesting. And, you know, this is the learning that I started off with, how I learned from my students. I'm very careful in my use of pronouns. I always say he, she, and I thought I was doing a big thing, like always talking about he, she. And at the end of one lecture, this boy, he identifies as a boy. He came to me, identifies as a boy for the sake of official records. He came to me, and he's my colleague now in my college. And he came to me and he said, but ma'am, your lectures are interesting, but somehow I feel very excluded in your lectures. And I said, why? He said, because you don't speak to me. And you keep saying he, she, and I identify with neither. I'm non-binary. And I feel that I'm being excluded in the conversation. I think that was an epiphanic moment for me, a turning point, which made me think about, as teachers, even as students, what happens to us when we talk about gender? How do we react when we talk about gender? What do we mean when we talk about gender? And how the idea of gender fluidity is extremely important. You become an ally when you say that I understand, and maybe you will take some time to understand your gender identity, and I am with you on that. Right? And finally, one thing that I always leave my students with, be open to new ideas, new ways of thinking, new ways of learning. Don't close your mind to it. Always be ready to unlearn and relearn through a different lens, through an intersection lens, through a different perspective. When you do that, you actually make the process of learning for you very interesting, but more than that, you make the world a wonderful place to live in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leena ji, for that. Please. Yeah. You want to keep it there on the because
Acha, in case.
Akara untala. It's thing. So. Thank you, Leena ji, for that extremely well nuanced, well contoured session where you sort of taken care of every single thing that I wrote you in the mail. In the topic that has been taken care of. And thank you for making it so
interesting. The certificate course करते हैं gender में. One last session, students take. Who are the students who have done the course? Past students. And you know, they titled the session as The Raging Feminist. And you know, every year we've been having sessions on the raging feminist. So students who have been transformed by this course and have been touched in some little way, but in a significant manner, invariably come back to us and say that we want to do it. Another thing that worries me, Yogesh, is under NEP, you all know NEP, right? इतने सारे काम करने पड़ते हैं, right? All kind of documentation. That I feel the focus on gender we have lost, and that scares me. Because you are so much into what we call McDonaldization, standardization of education that we say, that you miss these nuances. And I'm not even going back to what the Saksham committee report said about we have been doing everything in our schools and colleges and universities, not school. Research kar rahe hain, it's on the map, we are documenting. The weakest link is gender in our universities, and they're all part of that, colleges.
Thank you once again, Veena ji, for bringing so many little details to and taking these questions in the end also. Like she said, you know, we have hope, पर बहुत अरसा हो गया रुके हैं हम लोग कि वो बदलाव आएगा. तो वो कब आएगा इसके बारे में भी मैंने मेरा सेशन गुलजार साहब से एंड किया था. एक बार फिर गुलजार साहब के पास चलते हैं. वो ये कहते हैं कि मैं एक सदी से बैठी हूँ, मैं एक सदी से बैठी हूँ, इस राह से कोई गुजरा नहीं. कई चांद के रथ तो उतरे थे, पर चांद से कोई उतरा नहीं. मैं एक सदी से बैठी हूँ. रात और दिन के दोनों पहिए भी कुछ धूल उड़ा के चले गए. मैं मन आंगन में बैठी रही, चौखट से कोई गुजरा नहीं. मैं एक सदी से बैठी हूँ, इस राह से कोई गुजरा नहीं.
Thank you so much, ma'am and sir. That was quite an insightful session. So, with your permission, if we can move on to the certificate distribution of certificates. Ma'am, should we call them on stage, or it would be better if we can, yeah, we can call them downstairs, and because the students will, yeah. We'll, girls, yes, girls, we'll proceed with the distribution of the certificates. Krisha Shah, Krisha Shah, Komal Aresia, Tanya, stand. Pratiksha Wala, Janvi Chawda, Habiba Ansari, Rajasi Randive, Seher Memon, कंचन झा, दिव्या वर्मा, नम्रता धवसे, ईरम अंसारी, उर्वशी निर्मल, स्वाइबा अंसारी, यशवी रवारिया, गर्ल्स प्लीज मेंटेन साइलेंस, मदीहा गहलोत, रंजना ओलंबे, रोवान शेख, इकरा शेख, अतिका तनवर, कामिला लोधिया, कशत शेख, कशफ शेख, असरा कुरैशी, वंदना चंदेल, पृथ्वी पाटिल, सैंटन डिसूजा, इंजिया खान, आफरीन मलकानी, रीमा सैयद, योगस्त्य थेवर, सोनिया चौहान, धनश्री घोलप, विधि गिरी, रिदा कुरैशी, रुखसाना परवीन अलम, हेतवी मकवाना, आस्था दिवेर, yes, शाइस्ता सेलिया, मन्हा परमार, Vrukshika Sangavkar, Zubeda Sheikh, Jivika Fernandez, Samia Azmi. Nicole, you can give it to me.
So I, Nanika Datta, on behalf of Maniben Nanavati and the Department of Sociology and English, would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Rajshri Trivedi, our principal, for her immense guidance throughout the whole workshop. And our vice principal, Dr. Twinkle Sangvi ma'am, I thank you very much for your wise words and courage throughout the program. And I want to thank Dr. Leena ma'am, and Mr. Yogesh Pawar for graciously accepting our invitation and being present with us today for such an enlightening session. I am sure that our students have benefited greatly from your sessions. I thank all the teachers and all the teaching and non-teaching staff for being with us throughout the program, and all our student volunteers, and of course, our lovely audience for supporting. Thank you very much. You can all proceed for the high tea. Yeah? Please proceed. The tea is available. Tea, coffee is available, please.